Welcome back again. My name is Faith. You may remember me from my original video that was an address to Tomi from her knockoff Fox News broadcast that she did about Colin Kaepernick and his right to kneel during the national anthem. As you'll see, I have some new gear on here since he said he was going to donate all his proceeds from jersey sales, as much as he gets from them, back into the communities that he is naming. He's putting his money where his mouth is, and that's really appreciated. Even though he doesn't have to do it, he's just taking a stand. He's actually doing something productive with it, which I appreciate. So Tomi, you can suck it, because that's what you said, right? That he doesn't, what has he donated, what has he done? Here's just one example, besides just his right to stand up and say something about it. So in my original video, I got a lot of feedback. I have, at this point, towards the end of September, which is 4 weeks later, over 8,000 views, which is substantial considering I had like no previous videos or subscribers. There's a lot of good feedback and a good amount of ignorance too, so I figured I'd address it. It was crazy to me that standing up for black people got me called a cunt, a lesbian, a supporter of Hillary, which is Hillary Clinton in case you didn't know that. And everything else. I mean, I've been called terrible things. I've been here. I've been in Black Lives Matter protests. I've just been an ally and support. So I've been called everything in the book. It really doesn't faze me. But what's crazy is they come at personal attacks for you standing up for black people, and it astounds me every time. It doesn't hurt me, but it's almost humorous that they have to say something ignorant in order to take away from what you're saying. So anyway, I decided I'd do a follow-up, and even though some people got annoyed with the fact I was looking off my notes, I gotta do that so I stay to the point, because otherwise I could get completely tangential and I forget where I'm going with it. So I put back on my glasses so I can see my notes, and here we go. As of September 20th, 15 black people have been killed since Colin Kaepernick originally kneeled, which is the whole catalyst of why I made the original video, since Tomi had responded to his action of doing so. Keith Lamont Scott was killed on September 23rd, so that wasn't even accounted for, and that's in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I know you've seen the protests since then that have been turned into by the media as some type of riot, but the thing is, you got to look at this as what has perpetuated this. Like, people are so focused on any type of damage, but windows can be fixed. Keith will never be brought back. You got to look at weighing this out. You know, people are upset, and some people are going to take advantage of that situation. But in reality, it's usually white anarchists that come in there and break all the property. It's not the black people. But even if they did, you can understand why they're pissed. Of popular news, Terrence Crutcher was actually killed too. Of Tulsa, he hardly made the cutoff of the September 20th that I named, but he was named as a big bad dude, and he had a broken down car in the middle of the street. He had his hands up, as most people do, and he was killed anyway. He was not a suspect. He was not doing anything. There was a police helicopter along with multiple police, and a police officer by the name of Betty was the one that shot him and killed him. She claimed that he went to reach in his car even though the window's up, because if you watch the video or if you even see stills from it, you'll see that his blood is spattered on the window, which is closed. She's been, they're going to try her for first-degree manslaughter. It isn't the same as murder, but as for now, that's probably the best we're going to get, because it's not premeditated, but it is a circumstance that she did kill him. So although that's progress, it's not where we need to be. Tyree King, who's only 13, he joins the list of Tamir Rice as children that were killed by police officers, and inexplicably in states that are open carry when they were carrying toy guns. I digress, but going back to Keith Lamont Scott, the police officer that shot him is black, and I know that people are going to marginalize and say, like, oh, it was a black police officer that killed him, so you can't say anything. You still can. Like, NWA said, black police showing off for the white cop. This is an institutional problem. This isn't just an individual. This is a whole big scope. So we really got to look at the big problem here. When I'm looking at the comments, I was thinking, like, I don't know why people talk about civil rights as if it's past tense, because it never ended. I'll give it to you that it might have gotten dormant on the surface, but the journey to true equality and equity has yet to end. Just because laws were created doesn't ensure their execution. You know what I'm saying? We have the principles, but we don't have the practice. The idealism of it is real, right? We want true equality and equity, but we're not actually doing anything about it. We've just written it, but we're not doing it. We're not instilling those values, and we're definitely not practicing them at this point. For me, as an ally, it's important to speak up but not speak for. There's a fine line, but it's an important one. As an ally, you are here to amplify and to support, and not to control or delegate the situation. This is a hard concept and mistakes will be made, but just keep listening, learning, and do better. When you are an ally, you do not know the pain of which you have been made aware of. Therefore, you cannot speak for those who do. Stand up and speak as an ally. Have their backs when they're there and when they're not. You must be active at all times. Your realizations are their reality, so do not white-splain them to them. I know that I've been guilty of this, that when I realize something, I'm like, oh my God, let's make a status about it, let's talk about it, all this stuff. This is things that black people have been dealing with their whole lives. You don't need to tell them about it. You just need to be aware of it and make the conversation go further for people that don't. You don't need to tell them about their lives. You don't need to do that. In the United States, we get the message without ever hearing the direct word of it that minorities and predominantly black people are disproportionately cast as the perpetrator, antagonist, etc. We've been so conditioned to the covert and subliminal messages we receive in the media that we begin to embody its ideals and act so accordingly. And speaking of conditioning, you may or may not have heard of the police department a few years ago that was using pictures of black people in their target practice when they were training. But this is Pavlov's conditioning, and if you're not familiar with Pavlov, you can Google it, but it's just about ringing the bell, feeding the dogs, and simply it became that you rang the bell and the dogs would begin to salivate for the food, even if it wasn't there, because they were so conditioned to the ringing of the bell that they would anticipate that the food would be there, okay? So in 2016, an officer shot Charles Kingsley as he had his hands up explaining he was helping his autistic patient. When the officer was asked as to why he shot him, he said, "I don't know." Verbatim, he said, "I don't know." This is the same police department in Florida who used black men's pictures as target practice. He was trained how to pull the trigger on a black man without questioning it. He was that dog salivating without the food being there. He was the police officer shooting a black man without the crime, because he's been so conditioned to do so. He didn't even understand why he did it. It's in our culture that black men are so threatening that they have been shot even for making eye contact. That's it. People have compared Michael Brown to being the Hulk, Darren Wilson specifically, the one that shot him. And I don't know. There's so many things I could say, but I don't want to get too far off. And I'm getting on 8 minutes here, so let me cut it short. But we can think of simple things in this culture and everything that's going on in this new version of civil rights, even though it's just a continuation of everything that we've been through in this country. I do have a retrospect here thing, a little bit to step back for white people, just to think about that black folks are forced to live in a culture that we have appropriated and cultivated into our own, with the expectation that everyone conforms into it if they wish to be respected. In contrast, we are never forced or expected to see their reality, let alone their point of view. So you're expecting people to just understand the cultural norms as something that's not their culture, and they live that every day. They understand white people's culture so much more than we ever have to understand their reality, because that's the way that we've created it. That's just the way that it's been. And just a simple question at the end for those that are on the side of the police, whatever. I'm just wondering, why is it comply or die? Why is it the end all be all that if you're not completely listening or perfect, why are you killed? Why are they the judge, the jury, and the executioner when they're just supposed to be the law and order, when they're supposed to bring you in to protect you, to serve you? They're just protecting white supremacy, and that's the way it's always been. It's implicit and it's explicit in the way it comes out. A couple of different books I've read recently, Bad Feminist and Democracy in Black. I really recommend them both if you want to get a little bit more educated. I hope this video helps address everybody. Have a great day.